Okay, 7.1.8, 7th grade. I didn't bring my notes today, which is all the work I did for this lesson on my own, so I'm going to be doing it on the fly, which means I'm going to be doing it as I go. So hopefully I get all the answers correct. But make sure to leave a comment if I don't. I think I will. Oh, my dad just left. My dad was going to do some calculations for me. Oh well. Alright, so we're doing 7.1.8. How does it change over time? Talking about interest. We're introducing the concept of interest, and that doesn't mean, hey, I'm interested in cats. It means when banks lend money, they charge interest, which is a fee for letting the borrower use the money. Interest is usually expressed as a percent of the amount borrowed and is added to the amount that the borrower owes. So it's on top of what they're already borrowing. For example, a bank might charge someone 8% annual yearly interest for borrowing $500. So that means that on top of that $500, you would also be paying 8% of that $500 per year. In addition, if you have money in a savings account, so this is the good part, banks generally pay interest to you on the money that's in the savings account. So by leaving your money in a bank, you can earn more money. So there are different ways of calculating interest, and each one shows different patterns of growth. So we're going to talk about simple interest today, because there's different types, but we're going to talk about simple interest. And scrolling down, I'm looking at 786, our first problem, which is called renting the hall. So it says, the student council is planning a spring celebration. Unfortunately, to rent a hall for the event, they will need to pay a deposit in advance of the event. Since they've not started selling tickets yet, they asked the PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, for a loan of $825 for the hall rental. The PTA agreed, but said it would charge 2% simple interest each week until the loan is paid back. So Ms. Becker, the student council advisor, explained to the students that the amount of the loan, $825, is called the principal amount. The principal is the initial loan amount. Initial, like the first loan amount. And then it says, until the loan is paid back, 2%, called the weekly interest rate, of the principal, so 2% of this principal will be added each week to the amount owed. So that's the weekly, what did it say? Weekly interest rate. There we go. Okay, we got our info. Part A says, how much money in interest will the PTA charge each week? So what I need to do is figure out, well, if each week they are going to add on 2% of 825. I need to find out what is 2% of 825. Hold on one second. I think I already know the answer because I remember it, but let me just double check. Yep, I got it. Okay, so then Dad, you have to be at the computer because I need to do calculations. Okay, so 2% of 825, we can't just put 2% in unless you have some fancy calculator. Usually, and if you're going to do it on your paper, you need to make this 2% into a decimal. Okay, so if I make 2% into a decimal form, I'm going to put my little invisible decimal point at the end of 2, and we always go to the left twice, because we are dividing this by 100. So that's 0.02 times 825. And I just did the calculation on the calculator over there, and it said 1650. So that means that $16.50 is charged each week on top of the 825 that they borrowed. Part B says, I'm going to leave that there. Part B says, if the student council borrows $825, how much will it owe after 1 week? And then after 3 weeks. So after 1 week, we know that they're going to have to pay the initial principal plus whatever the weekly interest rate is. So this would be after 1 week. They would, what's 825? Hello?
Go ahead.
825 plus 1650.
2475.
No, it's not.
Whoa.
825 plus $16.50.
Oh.
So 825. Geez, I could have done it faster on the whiteboard. What is it?
841.50.
Thank you. So after 1 week, they will owe a total amount of $841.50. Okay, get ready because we're going to do the third week.
Okay.
So now it says after the third week, still got the same principal amount, but now I'm going to take 16.5 and multiply it 3 times because we're on the third week. Okay, so it's 16.5 times 3 plus 825.
825?
Yes,
I lost it. Okay, what is it?
16.5 times 3
Okay.
plus 825.
874.50.
Thank you. So after the third week, they will owe a total of $874.50 with that interest rate that the PTA is charging them. Okay, so now it says, oh, now we've got how much would the student council owe 2 months or 8 weeks from now. Can I have the calculator?
Yeah. Oh, you want the, well, you can't take it.
Hey, do this one then, because I don't want to keep bugging you.
No.
825 plus 16.5 times 8.
16.5 times 8.
Oh.
I come to 132.
No. So do
So say that again, what you need?
do 16.5 times 8,
Okay, hang on, let me do that. Okay.
and then add that to 825.
Oh, just, that's 957.
Good. All right, so that is after 8 weeks, because you'll see I put the 8 for 8 weeks, multiply it by the weekly interest rate, and then add it to the principal amount. Whew. Okay, so that's 8. That is not 8. That's 786. Now I think we have a new interest rate and a new principal on 787. The student council members realized they would also need funds before the event to pay the DJ and photographer a deposit. They will need a second loan of $1,000 to pay for these 2 expenses. So $1,000 this time is the loan amount or the principal. If the PTA also charges them 2%, so 2% would be the interest rate, how much will be added to this loan each week? So I'm thinking the same idea as the last problem. We took 2% of 825, so now let's take 2% of 100 or of 1,000. And if you want to do that in your calculator, we need to move the decimal point over to the left twice to make it 2.2.02 times 1,000. And I remember this one is $20. So each week they're going to add $20 to that loan. $3 each week. Part B says the PTA has decided to cover its costs. It only needs to earn $18 interest each week. So they don't need to earn 20, they want to earn 18. So this time we're finding what percent weekly interest should the PTA charge the student council for this loan. So we're going backwards, we're trying to find the interest rate this time. So this is how I thought of it. Well, I thought, well, if you put 20 over 1,000, you get the 2% interest, or you'll get like the 0.02 on your calculator. But if you do 18 over 1,000, you're going to get the interest rate that they're talking about here, which comes out to 0.018, but then you move the decimal over twice to make it a percent. So it would be 1.8% interest for if they wanted to earn $18 of interest each week. All right, and then we're on to the last problem, 788, which says a loan agreement between the student council and the PTA has finally been reached, but the PTA will not loan the full $18.25 requested. To make sure everyone understands the agreement, the PTA created the table below. So you'll see in your book or on the screen, it says number of weeks, calculations, total loan amount. Based on this table, how much will the student council borrow and what is the percent increase? So I was looking at, well, what's the principal? What are they borrowing first? What's the initial loan amount? I'm looking at 0 weeks because that's before it even starts, so that would be $12.50. $12.50 is the principal or the initial loan amount. And then it wants us to find the percent interest, which we have to do a little work for. So I'm looking at looking at the amount that's being added each week, and it's $18.75 per week looks like it's being added. So I'm going to take the strategy I used in the last problem. Remember when we divided 18 divided by 1,000 to get our percent interest? Because that was how much was being added each week. So I'm going to take 1875 for this problem, and I'm going to divide it by 1250. Can you do that for me?
I'm sorry, Joe.
18.75
Wait. Okay.
divided by 1,250.
0.01, but hang on. What were the numbers?
18.75
Okay.
divided by 1,250.
1,250?
Yep.
Still comes up to 0.01. 1,250. 1,250.
Then it might be 0.01. It might be 1%.
No. That's what it came out to.
Let me double check the answer there. I think that's right. 0.01. No.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're doing it wrong. It should be 1,250 divided by, what was it?
1875. But that's not going to give you the right thing.
No.
Okay, it should be 0.015. That should be what comes up in the calculator. And then to make that a percent, we want to move the decimal to the right twice, and you get 1.5%. So they're charging 1.5% interest on that amount. So now it says, how much will the student council owe after 3 weeks? So now we're on B. And then after 4 weeks, show your calculations. Well, I'm looking at the 1875, and it's just repeated addition every week. The week number corresponds to how many 1875s you add on to the 1250. So for week 3, we need to add 3 of these. But I'm going to make it simpler and use multiplying because we know that repeated addition is multiplying. So 1250 plus the 1875 3 times 3. And I'm actually going to use my calculator now because I can't rely on Dad's calculator. So we have 1875 times 3 plus 1250. 1306 and 25 cents. So that's how much they would make after 3 weeks. So to get 4 weeks, I can either write this whole equation again and just change that to a 4, because this is our number of weeks, or I can just add 1875 to this. And I'm just going to add 1875 to that because it's a little bit simpler and less time consuming. So after 4 weeks, looks like $1,325. Okay. So now part C asks us, how is the amount of money the student council owes changing each week? Show how this change can be found in the table. Well, if you're looking at the table, you'll notice the change each week, which we've been talking about. So pretty much, what is the amount that is added per week? Well, 1875 is the amount that's added per week. So 1875 would be the answer for C. And it's clearly shown in the table with the repeated addition for each week. So now part D says the student council president wants to be able to check quickly how much the student council owes at any point. Use your table to write a variable expression that shows the amount of money the club owes the PTA after any number of weeks, and make sure to define your variable. So we have to define a variable here, which I'm going to say is x. And I'm going to think about the equation that I've been using to calculate the number of the amount owed for each week. So I did 1250 plus the 1875, but then I multiplied it by the number of weeks. So instead of putting a certain number of weeks, I'm going to put x. Because now you can plug in any number of weeks here, times that by 1875, add it to 1250, and you'll get your total amount owed for that particular week. You could put 100 weeks in there, you put 200 weeks, you put 1,000,000 weeks, and you'd be able to calculate this. So it's getting us to write an algebraic expression or equation. This is an expression with no equal sign, but now, so x is number of weeks, and when it's right next to 1875, it just means it's multiplying to 1875. So that's part D. Part E actually wants us to use this equation. So it says the president figured out that if the student council does not pay off the loan by the end of the school year, it would owe $1,500. How many weeks of school are left? Use your expression from part D to write and solve an equation. So I'm going to use this for this problem, and we're going to have to solve for x, but I'm going to add something to it. I'm going to add that 1,500 because that is the total loan amount we're trying to get to. We just need to figure out how many weeks are left of the school year. So here's my algebraic equation. First step, I want to get x by itself. It's the first thing that comes to my mind. So I want this 1250 to go away, and it's a positive 1250 because when there's nothing in front of the number, that means it's just positive. So I am going to minus a 1250, since we take the opposite of the positive 1250 to make that 0, minus the 1250 over here, because you have to keep it balanced on both sides. So then I know I got to use a calculator for this, even though it's pretty simple, but I don't want to mess up. So it's 1,500 minus 1250. So it would be, why did I do $12.50? It's $1,250. See, this is what happens when I don't have my notes. I was going to say that doesn't seem right to me. Somebody should have said something. Okay, minus a 1250. Minus a 1250. So this comes down here, 1875x equals 1,500 minus 1250 is just 250. Now we're going to divide 1875 by both sides because I want x to be all by itself. That turns out to be 1 because you're just dividing 1875 divided by 1875. And now we're doing 250 divided by 1875, which is 13.33 forever weeks. So there's 13 1/3 weeks of school left. That is the final problem that we're doing for 7.1.8. And I will see you later. Bye bye.